The thing about fishing is that you're never really competing against the next guy, even though when you lay it on the scales, you are.
Yep. Yeah.
But the bottom line is you're competing against that fish, and that's you. It's just like what you did. You competed against yourself. You wanted every movement to be perfect. Every time that you competed, you wanted to be at your peak form to do it. And it's the same thing with me. I wanted to be the best I could be, and if I went out there and I only caught 10 pounds, but that's the best I could do, I had to live with that, even though everybody else caught 20. I was okay. Then there's something else I'm missing, and I had to figure that out.
Robin Hood and Little John are walking through the forest, laughing back and forth at what the other has to say.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Ruckless podcast again. Today we have somebody that I'm super excited to have on because he's a fishing brother. Never met him. Introduced from a mutual friend of ours, but he fishes a whole different game than I do. And so I got a lot to learn. I'm excited. So welcome to the Ruckless podcast. Today we have Shaw Grigsby on. Shaw, one of the coolest things I saw was you're in the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. Is that right?
Love it.
It's amazing.
That's great, man. That was really cool to see and getting to flip through your pictures. And I know you've been at this game for a really long time. I love the old guys, man. We got, selfishly, I come on the podcast a lot of times. I'm just here to learn, right? Like this is like the biggest advantage in the world is I get to have guys on that I can learn from, or just I'm super curious about what world you live in. But do us and the people who are listening a favor, just tell us kind of a little bit of your background, where you came from and where you're at today, and we'll just sit back and listen to the history of Shaw.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Well, I just born and raised in Gainesville, Florida, and my dad was a professor here at University of Florida, and I graduated high school and started going to college there at University of Florida, and he ended up taking early retirement and to run a business, and I dropped out to help him run the business, and so I never got a degree at U of F, but I went there for 4 years. and he told me, he said, son, if you'd ever spend as much time working in school as you do fishing, said you'd make $1 million, but I fished, and I fished a lot, and then I started getting into tournaments, and that one thing led to the next thing I became a professional tournament angler, and so fishing on the BASS circuit, and that lasted for a lot of years, and I think my total span is about 42 years on the circuit, and got a lot of wins, a lot of great times, and so caught some wonderful fish, and when you get up, you get to hold the check up for $100,000 or whatever, it's pretty special, and then as I got older, I got inducted into Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. I got inducted into Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame and Legends of the Outdoor Hall of Fame. So it's been a long career, and I think they give those Hall of Fames to guys that are just older. Yep. That's what they do. They're looking for somebody to stick it in there. And then I guess my best accomplishment, or my smartest thing that I ever did, or the greatest thing, I guess, let's put it that way, the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life was January 22nd, 1990, I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. So that's who Shaw Grigsby is. Right now, I retired from professional bass fishing last year, so it's been about August will be a year. And I started about 4 years ago nuisance alligator trapping with a trapper here, and we run 3 counties. And so I use all my fishing skills catching alligators. And these are alligators that, pose a harm, or maybe, in fact, we got one the other day that ate a pit bull, which was really sad. But actually last weekend we had two attacks here in Florida, 1 death. Which is really sad. And the week before that, we had another attack, and about a week before that, we had another attack. So in the last 3 to 4 weeks, we've had 4 gator
relocate
attacks
those
here in Florida, in my general area here. So, Yes, yeah, we're live capture. So, according to the state, we can't, if it's over 4 feet, we can't release it. So, generally, I'm throwing a rod and reel. I do a loose rod, throw it out there, hook them with this treble hook, and I fight them up, and I put a lasso around their neck, and then we jump on them and close your mouth and tape it up. And if he's under 4 feet, I take him to a lake where people can enjoy watching them and see him.
Oh, okay.
But if he's over,
And then what happens from there? They
then we
become a
have to take
tourist
him to Gator
attraction, or
Farms.
do they become food?
We have quite a few. We have a few that have gone like to Gatorland. One we caught that went to Gatorland. Somebody had tried to catch him or something. He had a bungee cord around his mouth. We thought he couldn't eat, but he was still alive.
Oh no!
And he grew into it, so it put 2 big grooves into his jaw, and they nursed him back at Gatorland, and he is an attraction down there. And we do have a nuisance gator or a gator guy that does rehab. So we got one earlier this year that I'm sure it was a little female, like a 7-footer, and it had the whole top of her jaw ripped off by another gator fighting. And they rehabbed her back to health. So some of them go to rehab facilities, some go to gator farms. Now, some gator farms, definitely, they'll be like high fence operations where, you get a big one in there and then you can pay the guy to go hunting. So, yeah, some of them.
Yeah, but nonetheless, that's
type
kind of that model of
operations.
conservation, right? You got to move them, or
Well, in the number of attacks, I mean, you're busy apparently,
Right.
Yeah.
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 Very. In fact, when I finish
There
this
you go, yep.
podcast,
that
I gotta
sounds
run
like an
down
absolute
and get
blast.
10
If you ever
footer
need a
about an
hand,
hour
I'll fly
south.
on down.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
we can
It'll
tackle
be
one of
fun.
those things. That sounds like
He's a
good
big
time.
boy.
That sounds fun.
He'll roll with the gator.
we do. If you find your,
We'll be
if you
there.
find
I
yourself
ran into a
Florida,
guy
let me
in
know.
Idaho. I was fishing on the lower fork of the South Fork of the Snake River, and he was from Florida. Came up and started talking, and within 20 seconds, the guy's like, anytime
Right.
you're in Florida, you come down. I got boats. We'll go hog hunting. We'll do this. We'll do that. And I was like, I just met this. I have him on his phone as Dan from Florida. And
There
I
you
told
go.
him, I was like, careful,
Yeah.
Dan, because I actually will come down, and everything you told me I want to do. I'm not the kind of guy that just says maybe to that kind of stuff. I go, so we'll I'll be down there. I got to go see Dan from Florida anyway.
Yeah.
I live on 70.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. I live on 70 acres right outside of Gainesville, and we're gonna have. So here comes another issue. Podcast issue, not Shaw Grigsby, that my phone doesn't have storage, and it might shut off on us. I have so many videos of I deleted so much stuff in the last week. I'm deleting apps and all.
We'll deal
and
with
it just
that
came
later.
up with a
Yeah,
storage.
we'll go till it
Anyway,
dies, and we'll
Yeah.
figure it out.
We'll go till we die. When it, So, but anyway, I was telling you, I live on 70 acres right here outside of Gainesville, and my wife got me up a while back, and she goes, "You better get this hog out of the front yard." I had to step out the front door of my house and pop about a 200-pounder right there. So we have fun. Florida's a great state. I mean, just a great state to live in. We don't have cold, which I don't like cold, so I'm a happy man about that. And we got saltwater fishing, freshwater fishing. We got, hunting. We don't have big deer. We don't have big elk. We don't have that. But we do have
You
pretty
do have
much
big
anything
spiders
you want
and
to do
snakes, though.
365 days a year.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know, man. I'd rather have a bear than I would a spider.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. Yeah. And I'm with you. I hate spiders. Man, I hate them. And but I tell you what my bucket list. So now I'm 70, right? And I've been in outdoors from my whole life, hunting, fishing, and doing all that.
Okay.
But my bucket list is to go down there to
I see them
and jump on one of
the
those
internet.
pythons.
Whew.
I'm gonna
They're
catch
big.
one.
They're throwing big ones off the side of the road. Yeah, and I like them. I'm like, do a little
Isn't it
Spider-Man
cool?
jump in there, and
Is that what they just jump right on them?
yeah.
Really?
Whew. Well, generally you work with them, and it's a lot like what we do with the gator. You just don't want to get bit. So you get them a little tired where they're striking, then they're striking, they get tired, then you grab them behind the head real fast, and then you hold on for dear life. You don't want to let up.
No.
And
Grab them real
that's
fast.
the cool
I feel like
deal.
a snake's
that's,
way faster.
Yeah, I look forward to doing
Well,
that.
tire them out. There's techniques to this.
You dangle like a rabbit in front of them or something like that. Just get them striking.
That's fun.
Yeah.
No, that's,
Yeah, you just play this game a
that's your
little bit.
hand.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Hand, brother.
Oh, dude. Shaw, that's awesome, man. And I think for me and Tyrel, we have a lot of questions because that bass fishing world is way outside anything I've ever done. There's plenty of bass fishing around here. I fly fish a ton, and that's kind of what we didn't grow up fishing a bunch. I mean, we would fish a pond here and there. But when I got to college, a friend that was in the dorms with me kind of, got me into fly fishing, and that's kind of been my addiction the last, 20 some years, and I'm all over the West here chasing fish. But I mean,
Nice.
There's so much about bass fishing, not just bass fishing, but like bass fishing tournaments. And I think that for us we got some questions just around just what that looks like for.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, just we're big competition sports people here, right? And so it's like you listed off Hall of Fames and the contribution. I mean, it's just like thank you for your contribution to sports in general. And sometimes we might not know about them as much, but it's so fun. And I'm a fan. Brian dedicated his life, early life to being at the top level of his game in something that isn't on TV very much either, or anyone knows about that much, right? And so I don't know. I think at this table we just respect that dedication, that grind, those decades, that time of putting something in. But then also from the outsider looking in on that bass world, I mean, it just seems crazy, right? Your boat's ripping across the lake and it's full go. And so tell us about that. When did that switch flip for you? When was it all go and the competition and everything?
That's a cool story. So we'll do that one. So my very first tournament. Well, I had a tournament and it was just kind of fun when I was 16. But my buddy that got me into bass fishing, he had moved over. He was in Boy Scouts with me, and he moved over to my high school. And so he said, "Hey, you want to fish a tournament this weekend?" Because we fished like once a month together, and I was racing motorcycles at the time, and I told him, I said, "Well, I don't have a race, so yeah, let's go fish this tournament." Well, back in those days, they lined the boats up single file, so boat after boat after boat in a big long line, and then they'd shoot a flare and everybody take off at one time. Dangerous as can be. Yep. Well, we couldn't get on the front line with everybody, and we had a smaller boat. We only had like a little 85 on our boat, and so we stayed behind some boats. Well, the guy shot the flare. The boats in front of us took off. Well, they have a big prop wash, so that prop takes off, throws a bunch of water, propels their boats forward, and we shot down on it where our boat goes up in the air on their prop wash and then falls in the hole of their prop wash. My tackle is eye level, floating up there. It comes down. My tackle box breaks open. My rods are flying. I'm hanging on, and I'm trying to tell my buddy which way to drive the boat, how far to go. And all these boats will swing wide to go in the corner, and I'm going straight line, straight going, and go right to the point. So he skimmed to the point, and he cut off, even though they had bigger motors, he cut off 20 boats because they're all stacked in, rocking and rolling and bouncing around. And we hit the canal. This was down in the Kissimmee chain. We hit the canal going from Hatchnahaw to Cypress, and we were probably less than a foot off the bank on the canal rock side, and we took another 20 boats out going that way, passing them. And when we finally got to the lock to go into Toho, I was shaking. I was like, this is the best sport. I get to fish and race at the same time. So I'm like, you can't beat that, So that
absolutely.
That
and Tyrel was thinking, we were talking about this before, but like just that adrenaline rush of you're flying across the lake, but then you have to like bring that all down
because then you're fishing, which is the most patient thing you're supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a little difference. I fly fish a lot. I actually got into a guy named Doug Hannon got me really. My dad used to fly fish, and I always considered it like the biggest waste of time, because here he is trying to catch
Yeah. Oh
one,
yeah.
and I could take a spinning rod with a little spinner and catch a whole bunch, you know. So I like catching when I'm a kid. So, but then I got older, and a buddy of mine, Doug Hannon, who's called the Bass Professor, a real famous fishing guy, and he said,
Yeah.
hey, you, as much as you like sight fishing, because I like looking at them, just like, you know, you do tailing reds and just all kinds of fish where you can see them in the streams. So he said, you'd love fly fishing for tarpon. And I said, well, I don't know how to fly cast. I just saw my dad do it. And he said, well, I'll teach you. So he took me out. I showed up at a Holiday Inn down at Bayport. He showed me how to double haul real quick. We go out there to tarpon fish, and I was hooked, man. I mean, the first time you see a 7-foot fish swimming up and you got a fly rod in your hand, it's like having a bear walk up to you and you got a twig. You know, that's about what it is, you know. And I, you know, I just knees got shaky and weak, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is intense. And so I started fly fishing for tarpon. Well, then it moved on, because once you start fly fishing, you get addicted, you know. Then it's like I'd carry a fly rod with me in my bass boat to tournaments, and on practice days I'd be up there catching smallmouth on a fly, you know, when I'd get them up on top and stuff. And yeah, so I started a TV show back in the 90s. It's called One More Cast, and I wanted to do the whole show fly fishing. That's how much, but I didn't have sponsors that were fly fishing sponsors, so you have to go where the money is, you know, and I did it. You know, when I did fly shows,
Yeah. How'd you guys do in that first tournament?
1 or 2 a year.
How'd you fare as far as your fishing went?
But I think we made a check. You know, the ones that I remember, the early boat tournaments, I don't remember those specifically. You know, like I know we did good here and there and made checks here and there.
Okay.
But my first BASS tournament, which is my first professional tournament, was in 1977. You two were probably not born. Nope. So that was my first tournament over on the St. Johns River, and I was fishing, you know, club stuff and local stuff. And I said, man, I really just want to see what it's like and see about these people that I've read about in the magazine, in Bassmaster magazine. I get out there, and I ended up finishing
awesome
28th, and I made $625. So the entry fee was probably about $300 at the time. So I doubled my money and had a blast. And I'm like, gosh, that's hooking.
What were the pots
right
like
there
back in the day, like in the 70s? What were guys making?
Yeah, that was exciting. Yeah. Generally, you'd make about 30 grand, anywhere from 25 to 30 grand in that time, you know, in the 70s and then 80s. And then they got up a little bit better. And I think I won the first $100,000 check, which was the Red Man All-American in 1984. Was the first time an angler had won $100,000 in a tournament.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So 84.
So how old were you in 84 then?
That was a lot of money. So.
Okay. Yeah, 28 or so.
Let's say I was born in 56, so I graduated in 74, so I'd be 28. Yes, sir. Yeah, that's actually, I should have been able to remember that right off the bat, but I am an old guy. But when I was 20, when I was 25, 26, 27, I'm going, man, I've done nothing with my life, and I'm feeling depressed, and I'm having a birthday. And then 28 rolls around, and it's like I'm on a rocket ship. I'm going like I'm fishing tournaments left and right. I think I fished 32 tournaments from January through June of 1984. 32 tournaments, placed in 30 of them. 2 of them I didn't. So, I mean, when you're doing that and you're doing something you love, I mean, it's the passion of that. You know, I just love fishing. And so being able to make a living at it is like the biggest gift. It's the biggest blessing you can ever have, is doing what you love to do and make
100K on a tournament at 28, though. I mean, none of your peers were probably making that kind of money, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, you had to feel like you're in heaven. I mean, as a 28-year-old, and you're fishing and making pretty darn good money, and you go, all I got to do is fish 30 times in 5 months, and you know what I mean? Like,
yes. Well, you know,
Oh yeah.
tournament fishing is
Oh, I
is
bet.
you got a lot of ups and downs. So you got to learn to take the lows with the highs. And if you win, and I was looking at this, you know, a while back and looking at, you know, Hall of Famers and really good anglers that you go, and if you win
Oh, yeah.
5% of your tournaments, that's really good. You know, if you win bigger than that, some of the real goats win,
Yeah.
8 to 10% of their tournaments, and they're like just amazing. I mean, that's just amazing. So it's winning is special. You know, so I have 9 professional wins. That doesn't count, you know, other tournaments. That was BASS, so which is which was the big tournament organization. Since then, we've started Major League Fishing, so we have Major League Fishing, and then we had Operation Bass. We had other organizations, but I had 9 in Bass, which is, you know, Hall of Fame credentials. I had I won in a number of other events that are not listed, like the Redman All-American was another event. But I had in Bass, I had 11
Yeah.
second places.
Yeah.
So you got 11 times when I fell short. You know, 11 times that I did not succeed,
Right.
and yet you do make a check and you
How
do
do they score
succeed.
that?
I mean,
when
it's
you
great
when
to
you
do
go out
that,
on a
but you're not
tournament,
first.
walk us through that. How do you? Is it just the biggest fish, or is it weight, or?
No, it's
Okay.
they try to eliminate luck. So we have a multi-day tournament. It usually goes 4 days. A number of them would do 3 days, but they're usually a 4-day tournament. You have a limit of fish that you can catch. So it'd be like 5 fish a day. Back in the day, it was bigger, but now they're more into conservation. So you get 5 fish, and you keep the biggest 5. So you're keeping them all alive. In fact, if you kill one, you get penalized.
Yeah.
So we put them in live wells. We have
We ain't
special
killing no
live
fish
wells
if
and
we're getting
additives and
penalized.
aerators and bubblers and you name it. We got
We're
them.
keeping all
I mean,
fish alive.
Little
Yeah.
fish
no,
CPR.
we're mouth to mouth them, okay? I mean, we're not letting them die. So,
Yep.
CPR on the anyway. So anyway, we keep them alive and we bring them in, and you're letting go the small one and you put the bigger one in, and you bring in your 5 biggest at the end of the day, and then whoever has the most total weight wins the tournament.
Okay,
And then
that's what I heard.
That's
There was some
a little bit
controversy
less
last year,
goes
guys
on from
putting
that
weights in the fish.
Well, yeah.
Oh, and the walleye tournaments is brutal. So, the good thing about us and most bass tournaments are pretty clean, but there are still some buddy tournaments and stuff that you can hanky panky with, which is not good. But ours, like we had cameras, we had people in the boat with us. I mean, depending on
They
the
were really
level
trying to
that you're
eliminate
at,
all that.
they're monitoring you
I mean-
100% of the time. So.
In all sports, it's like you
they don't want
gotta.
anything. They don't want any.
The
targets
integrity
to
of
it.
the shield is most important in all sports, especially nowadays with the betting and it's on your cell phone at your
Right.
fingertips. Like the integrity of it has to be there. I mean, we're all for it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% behind that. Most of what we have for if we have a violation is something minor, like he didn't get his life jacket zipped up, or he messed up, and I mean most of them are minor infractions. Not
What?
major.
Okay,
Every now and
so
then we get a major,
zipping up the life jacket,
and they
that just
get 'em
made me
out.
think about like what are some of those like old school, maybe even unspoken rules? What are those things that just hang on for a while that are kind of silly about the tournament play, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I don't know that I mean we used to have a lot of really what I'd call integrity in the sport. Like some of the big name guys I'd fish against, and I'd be going down a bank and he'd be coming down another bank, and we'd see each other and we'd fish up to each other, and he'd want his and I'd want mine. We'd turn around and go back, and the whole tournament we would do that. So we wouldn't encroach on his spot, I wouldn't encroach on his, back and forth. So we had a lot of that.
Yeah.
That type of relationship, where nowadays you don't have that much. I mean, there's most of the time it's just like it's
more cutthroat,
just fishermen eat fishermen. Just keep going, man. And do the best you can. And so, but I see that a lot in a lot of sports too, where it's really it's gotten to where it's very competitive and win at all costs.
Right.
So you see people take chances that they probably shouldn't, and you got to understand it is a sport, and even though you can make money at it and that it's your livelihood and stuff like that, it's still a sport. I mean, still a sport, and that's why I've always, I always feel I got all those second places and stuff like, and third place and stuff like that. It's just because I wasn't, I wanted to enjoy myself. I enjoyed every minute of my tournament career. I enjoyed every minute outside of my tournament career. I'm still enjoying every minute. I jumped on a 10.5 footer the other day. We call them e-gators, emergency gators. And so the gator, they have a gator. He's on the side of the highway, and the officer pulls up, turns on his flashers, and he's holding it. He said, "Man, we need this gator out here quick before somebody hits it or somebody gets, run over or whatever, and, swerves out and crashes." So I go over there, and the officer tells me, "Hey, he's pretty lethargic." And I'm looking at this big dude, and I'm like, he ain't going to be lethargic for long.
I've been watching him.
That lasso over him, and he... Dude, he went nuts, and so now he's trying to bite me, and I'm jumping around over here, and I'm running over here, and I'm getting around over here, and he's swinging, trying to bite me there and all, and not lethargic at all. And it went and went and went, and finally I got him where I could kind of prod him, and he wouldn't do anything. So that's what we look for. We want him to be quiet and calm, and then I can jump on him and tape his mouth. Well, this one's big enough. I have a little wire snare, so I laid it over him, and I cinched it down on his mouth, so now he can't open his jaws. So now I'm pretty safe. But those, you remember, gator jaws are kind of tapered, round tapered. That slides off because it's not like it's anything to hold on, so it can slide off. So I jump on his back, I grab him, I get these, it's big, right? So I got his jaws, and I start to lift him, and I got the officers holding the rope. My wife's actually holding the snare, and I got the tape in my mouth, and I'm going to hold him and tape him, right? So I lift his head up, and all of a sudden I feel him, and he goes, "Oh no." And he decides he's going to do a death roll. Well, I'm on top of him, and that puts me in that death roll.
Yep.
And he rolled over me like I was just a yard puppy.
Yep.
And next thing you know, I bob up on the other side like, oh my gosh, And so he crushed me pretty good. He's about, a 400-something pound gator rolling me on the highway. But I got him, I jumped back on him and got him taped, and I'm like, I felt it for a number of weeks where I felt that, but anyway, so yeah, it's awesome. I'm having, like I said, I'm having more fun now, retired and enjoying life. I get to spend time
that
with
with
my
your
family
son or your
and
grandson,
grandkids,
right?
it's
Okay.
I'm doing it with my grandson now. Yeah, my son, he works at UF, and he's a big outdoorsman too. Loves duck hunting. He's a duck hunting machine, and he's a competitive shooter, so he likes shooting, shotgun, sporting clays, and things like that. So he does that. My daughter, she's a nurse and runs like patient care here. I think it's called case management here at Shands, our teaching hospital. So she's and so we're all right here. We get to visit.
Wonderful. How many grandkids do you have then now, Shaw?
Hang out. Family is special. I have three. I have two girls that are 9. If I get this right, 9 and 8. One's turning 8. The one's 9. And then I have my grandson who's 19, and so big difference on that first one. And he's my gator hunter. He's a big boy, and he can handle them. So when we get a 10-footer, he'll say he'll grab him by 2 feet, and I'll get the other, and I'll struggle.
Perfect.
Throw him in the truck. I'm like, I like that. Yeah, you got to have grandkids, man. They're just, and the cool thing about it, I've always loved this about grandkids. The cool thing about grandkids is that you went through it with kids. You got kids? Okay. So when you have kids, you're nervous. But, you're nervous. You said, oh, don't do this, don't do that. I don't want to get hurt. You're all these things that you do that you're trying to make sure they're okay and they get the right upbringing through life, Well, once you've had kids, you've gone through that. then you know that there's so
We'd
many
probably
things
like
that you
that
did
list.
that really
Like, what's
didn't make any difference.
what's
Really,
the stuff that don't make
really
any
is not a
difference? Because
big,
that's
big care, you know.
because it is.
And
It's
so
You got to live life to learn
well,
that.
when you
Like
get
we gotta learn it for ourselves, don't we?
well, so so I got grandkids, and all of a sudden it's like I
Yeah.
see what they're going when they're little. I go, oh, I know where this is going. You know it ahead of time because you've been there, and it's just so cool. People think it's great because you got them and you can send them back home and spoil them. No, it's that you know what's happening before it happens, right? And it's really cool. I remember my grandson he was probably 4, and we were at the dinner table, all sitting around the table, and he gets up out of his little high chair and walks around to go talk to grandma, you know. So he says something to grandma, and as he's turning around, he walks back around the table, and he's got his foot in the air to step on his high chair and get back in his chair, right? And my daughter goes, "Get in your chair." You know, like you're supposed to stay in your chair when you eat. And I just laughed. I went, "Oh, here it comes," you know. And he's like, "Stomp! Here goes the foot." No, not. And I'm like, "This is just funny," you know. I mean, because there was no reason for it. You know, he's jumping on the couch, and on my kids' mitts, I'd have been on them. Don't jump on the couch, you'll get hurt, busted. You know, and you tear up the couch, blah blah. My grandson jumped on the couch. I go tell him, I said, "Bryce, you know what's going to happen? You're fixing to bust your butt. You're going to get hurt." He's like, "Oh, no." Boom. He hits the ground. Grandpa's really smart.
Yep.
Oh man, I love that so much.
That's grandparents
Yeah, it's.
right there,
I mean,
man.
we it ends up coming up a lot on the podcast for us talking. I'm a little older than Tyrel, and so my kids are. I got a 17 and a 14-year-old. I got a 14-year-old boy and a 17-year-old daughter, and so it's yeah, we're in it right now. You know, although it's interesting.
Yes, that's a really
It is,
really
and we got
tough
the
time.
daughter's got a boyfriend
There's
showing
so
up,
much
and
going on
you know what I
at that
mean. And
age,
he's going to college, and it's she'll be a senior, so that's its own phase of her being independent and doing her own thing, which is good. And then our son is 14, and he's in that challenge phase of everything's a challenge. You know, he wants independence as well. Testosterone's through the roof now, you know, and everything is a push. Oh, man. And so I told my wife, I said, you know, that's not an excuse, but you have to know that this kid is like, his hormones are raging, you know, so if he gets angry or he says something stupid, it is simply just that. I think just him saying something stupid, and you have to just kind of let it roll off. And at the same time, you got to kind of pull him back in and kind of pull in the reins. I think, like you said, like I'm constantly figuring it out. And a 13-year-old boy is different than a 14-year-old boy. And I thought I had it figured out, and then he changes, you know, and something shifts. And so, which is good.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? It gets better. It gets better. And it gets better.
Yeah.
And then they grow up a little bit, and then it gets incredible. You know,
can't wait for that.
And then they
can't wait for that.
They're taking care of you, which
long
is
ways.
really cool.
And then Tyrel's are quite a bit younger. He's got what's his
Yeah, I've got a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old boy, and so 8 years ago I thought I had life kind of figured out. So,
wonderful.
It's
Great
fun.
answer.
It's I'm in man, we're having so much fun, but there's 24 segments or whatever to a day, right? Like, you know, it's up and down right now. And we're living
they got
Summer's fun. We're full blown summer right now. Yep.
Yeah, they got their fishing rods. They came over the other day and they just got the little Snoopy poles, basically. Or
we got our Spider-Man and our Barbie. And I'm not obsessed with the fishing world like this guy is. So we get him at the store, and I'm pumped. And I haven't fished since high school. I don't know. He's taken me a couple times, but fishing isn't my thing. And he teaches me how to tie some stuff, which I've done pretty good on my own now for the last few weeks. And, we found a couple spots in town, and we've been pulling in a little like sunfish, little bluegills or something, and
that's where
the daughter's loving it. Yeah, we're having so much fun with it. Yeah,
it was funny because we were setting his rods up, and I've taken my son fly fishing a couple times, and we're setting up his little Snoopy rod, and Logan goes out, kind of like you did with your dad, and he like pushes the button, chucks it across the yard, and he looks at me like, "Why are you fly fishing?" He's like, "This is so easy. I just throw it out there and reel it back." I said, "Yeah, you're not wrong, bud. Like there's definitely times where you're throwing a fly rod in a river or lake, and you're going, this is the very worst way to try and catch a fish in this lake right now is throw a fly rod, But it's, I mean, for me, all fish is anything that shakes its head. I was in Belize. We were chasing tarpon, permit, and bonefish. but they had a little bait caster on there for literally for catching bait, or whatever that the guy had on the boat. And my buddy, you can only really throw one guy at the front when you're tarpon fishing, Tyrel. Just it's kind of, you got room for one guy to be throwing a rod. So while we're waiting, I'm like, do you mind if I just chuck this thing? It had a little spoon on it or something. And he's like, sure. We're out in the middle of ocean, nothing. There's caves underneath us. And he said it actually helps because it stirs up the water, and a tarpon might look over and kind of. I'm like, if I can be helpful by catching fish, I'll do it. But that kind of little kid in you that I said on the podcast, but you don't.
Yes.
I think if you ever lose that desire to throw anything in any body of water and catch any old fish, then you're missing the point. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a stick and a string or whatever it is. Like, I still find it fun that little hook set and that head shake, and you're like, there we go. That's it. That's all I wanted out of this deal is that one. How about this? I was just thinking, as I was saying that, 'cause I was thinking about the tarpon I lost. Do you have a couple of 2 or 3 fish that you lost in your career that you were like that? I'm sure there's hundreds of them, but specific stories that you remember in a tournament where you look back in a tournament. Because I know in my athletic career, I can still remember the moment where I was like, I had it, and it was gone. But I mean, do you have a couple of fish you still remember that go, had I landed that fish? And here's the thing: could be $100,000 fish. That's wild.
Yeah, I had one of these career deals. I was leading by quite a bit on Angler of the Year, which Angler of the Year is the one that you outperform all your peers for the whole year long, and you're the top. They give you points, and you're the top point guy. And so going into the final tournament, I'm leading in a 100-point system. I got a 26-point lead. So pretty much a slam dunk that you get this big career maker Angler of the Year title. And I go into this final tournament, and it is just brutal. But I figure them out. I start working. I'm there, and it's the final day, and I'm pitching these trees. And there's this one tree, it's kind of sitting up, and then there's a log laying right at the front of it, kind of laying horizontally. And those were key to hold fish. Anytime you had something that's horizontal, the fish could get underneath it and you catch it. And so I'm pitching to it, and I wanted to hit the log and drop down. And I actually hit the log a little hard, and it went over the top and dropped down. And one about 3.5 pounds ate it, right? And I set the hook, and I must have hit him in something, just really a nerve or something, because he went nuts. I mean, most of the time a fish is going to fight, and you're gonna work him, and then you have to get him over the log or go over to the log and land him. But this one went crazy, came straight at me, came out of the water, just tail walking, almost like you'd see a marlin or a tarpon, just going crazy. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I'm trying to back down on him, but he's just like, just going nuts, and broke me off. And it cost me Angler of the Year. That one fish cost me Angler of the Year. I missed it by like 5 points or something. And I'm like, so that's like, it was a huge disappointment, and I'll never forget it.
What's that? Okay, and, hitting the log, dropping down to hitting the log and going over the room of air there. Like, would you not make that mistake very often? Like,
it was. Yeah, you didn't. I mean, you're making a pitch, a flip with your rod and reel and weight and a little plastic bug, and pretty much, with us on a professional level, we can take like a teacup and put it in it pretty much every time. I mean, you're going to miss some, but just that particular one was just a skosh too hard and hit that front edge instead of dropping it, pitched it right over the top, and that log was just, I guess, too rough, and it just broke me off, and I'm just like, I was devastated. But, that's part of life, and you go on and you keep having, tournaments and keep, the big thing about life is you learn from everything. You learn from your mistakes, you learn from your good times and your bad, but you never give up. You never give up. You just keep going. And that's the biggest thing is just stay strong and keep going.
100%.
And you keep
that's
going.
That's what sports brings us, right? The competition. That's what. you gotta fail those few times, right? You gotta learn to accept that.
And that's those tournaments where for you get, it's just that I'm sure for you, it started out,
Yes.
you just wanted to be in a tournament, be in the top 5, 10, whatever it was. That was the goal. And then you find yourself, how many years did it take you to where you were getting to that Angler of the Year kind of level before because that's the thing, the goalpost moves in a good way. You're always having more to
So,
chase and more to chase, right? And
right. It does. It does. Yeah. My first season I
Yeah.
jumped out in '84 was my first, full season. So I fished one in '77. I fished one maybe in '81 or '83, but anyway, in '84, March '84, I decided I'm going professional, and I went professional, and I got my brains beat in '84. I mean, it was like, woo, it's bad. But I had won that Red Man All American, got me $100,000, so I knew I had enough money I could go for 2 years, and so '85. So our seasons were half seasons. So we would start in September, and the season would end in May, and then you'd have the what we'd call the Bassmasters Classic, which is like Super Bowl, would be in the summertime in like July or August. Then we start back up in September. So my first full season was that season of '84, '85. September '84 through '85 of May, and then we had the Classic. My second year of '85, September to '86, I made the Bassmasters Classic. So the second year I made the deal that you try to make every year is the Classic. That's the big thing. And then I started competing to win and then doing better. And the '90s were really good. And so, and even into 2000, in fact, actually in 2000, I think it was 2000, I did back-to-back tournament wins, and then I almost won the third one. I made the top 10 of the third one. And so I had a piece of equipment blow up on me on a big fish, and I might have won that one. So anyway, that was really cool. It's rare to have back-to-back.
Where's the most room for improvement in that? I mean, as you went from that '84 to '85 season, or somewhere in there, where do you find yourself? Is it reading the lakes? Is it reading structure? Is it your ability to cast, or gear? I mean,
I think it's all of above, but I think the biggest problem that I had was that I'd spent my lifetime fishing in Florida.
Right.
And we would only have maybe one tournament in Florida a year. And so I had to learn other bodies of water, what a reservoir, how you fished a reservoir, what these rivers and different places would fish. New York, how would New York fish? And so as you start traveling a little bit, then you realize that a bass is a bass.
Okay.
It really doesn't matter if he's in California, Canada, or Florida. He's still a bass.
Yeah.
And he's still going to eat, and he's still going to be a predator, and so you utilize that knowledge, and then it seemed to work a lot better for me. And then you get a little confidence, and then you build on that confidence, and then, and now your casting's getting better, your precision's getting better. You know what really it takes to get them to eat, to feed them a little better.
Yeah.
And so, because everything we do is artificial, just like you do with a fly, it's all artificial, and you got to coax them into eating. So yeah, it's a great endeavor. It's one of those endeavors and the reason I love fishing so much, and especially bass fishing tournaments, and there's a lot of guys that go from other sports and come in and fish tournaments because the challenge is it never changed. I mean, you will always be challenged. You never master it, right? I don't care how good you are, you're still going to get your butt handed to you, and then in the next tournament you're winning it, and you're like, here we go, and then you get into the flow and you start really feeling it, and then you start really clicking them off, and it's I see it in every angler that I've ever competed against. I watch him come in and I'm like, yeah, he's on the bottom of the list. He's on the bottom of the list. And all of a sudden he's in the middle of the list, right? And then next year he's up at the top of the list. And then he goes for, like 10 years or 12 years of just really clicking it off. And then he starts to slow down. and some of that's mental. A lot of it's mental, where you decide I've done enough. And other things is just that you've been there and you've done that, and you may neglect some of the key things that got you there. So, but I can tell you that, yeah, it was a great sport, and it was a sport that kept me always.
Did you have a mentor early on? Was there somebody that was that old school that kind of took you under their wing, or how'd that work in that world?
I had a lot of guys that I really, really looked up to. A guy named Rick Clun and Gary Klein, those two. And then I got to be personal friends with Gary. And so Gary is from California, and he started competitive bass fishing right out of high school. And that's the only job he's ever had. And he's in Hall of Fames and all that kind of stuff. He's an amazing angler. And just to hang out with him and to listen and to, and then a couple of those other guys that really made a difference in how you fished and how you approached the water and things like that.
Right.
So they made a big difference. I don't know if any of them like took me under their wing or anything like that, but you got to be buddies and you got to be friends, and then and every one of them you learn from. And
that's I was wondering,
really,
sport. I mean, you're not really.
People.
I mean, you're competing, but you're not. It was like with me with track. I mean, we trained together because it was really just a matter of him doing his very best on the day and me doing my best on the day. There was nothing I could do to take away from what he was doing, and I feel like fishing's sort of the same way where.
Yeah. See, that's it. It is. The thing about fishing is that you're never really competing against the next guy, even though when you lay it on the scales, you are.
Yep. Yeah.
But the bottom line is you're competing against that fish, and that's you. It's just like what you did. You competed against yourself. You wanted every movement to be perfect. Every time that you competed, you wanted to be at your peak form to do it. And it's the same thing with me. I wanted to be the best I could be, and if I went out there and I only caught 10 pounds, but that's the best I could do, I had to live with that, even though everybody else caught 20. I was okay. Then there's something else I'm missing, and I had to figure that out. So, but you're competing.
Are you allowed to have
like
a beer on the boat while you're in these tournaments? How's that work?
What decade that in?
Yeah, when did that stop? I know it early on. I had to have had like an old Coors Light or something on there.
Yeah. Those.
Yeah.
I suspect the old guys in the old days, they did, and they had some fun back, in the 70s and all, when the sport started in '68, the BASS did, and then in those early '70s and all were just crazy good times. And I got in, at the end there, really where it started to change, but in the '80s, and then we really made some changes starting in the late '80s and '90s. So, but anyway, it's I'm sure they probably did, but no, our time we had none. In fact, that's what I always used to say. So my buddy and I, we'd go fish these tournaments when we did these buddy tournaments. My guy Jerry that got me into it. Anyway, so we would go to these tournaments, these buddy tournaments, and almost everybody we competed about. Now we're 18, 19 years old,
Yep.
Almost everybody there competing was there to drink beer, chase women. Drink beer, chase women.
Yeah.
Drink beer, chase women. We would go out there, and all we wanted to do was catch fish. So we would fish. And so we were doing pretty good. I remember one guy, though. We had a guy, and he was just such a great guy. But he did like his drinking, okay? And so we're at a classic, which is the end of the year championship deal. And we all meet at a restaurant, and then they're going to tell us where we're going to go, and we all trailer to it to go fish this place. So we're all there, and everybody's going, "Where's Doug? Where's Doug? Nobody can find Doug?" And they go, "Well, isn't that his truck over there?" Where they opened the door of his truck, and he fell out, just drunker than a skunk, And they're like, "Oh my gosh!" And somebody helped him drive to the lake. Anyway, he got his boat in the lake, and then somebody sees him. It's like 12:30 or 1 o'clock, and they see his boat floating across the lake, and they don't see him. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, he's dead! He fell out of the boat and drowned." And they go over there, and he's sleeping in the floor of the boat, and they wake him up, and he gets up at like 1:30 and weigh-in's like at 3:30, and he beats us like a drum and wins
he put it together.
That's so fun.
He just massacred us. Yeah. So, but he was he was that good, but he was such a that was one of the funnest guys to be around. Just
That's
he was
awesome.
so cool to
Yeah.
be
So no
around.
no
Loved
beer on
him.
the boat.
So yeah,
So
good
that
memories,
probably
man.
takes a
Good
lot of guys.
memories.
A lot of guys don't know how to fish without a beer in their hand, so they wouldn't know what to
Nope.
do.
I was gonna say that like you probably found yourself just outworking everybody, and found yourself advancing and moving that goalpost just by putting in effort and
And
being willing to
yeah,
fish your ass off when other people were maybe trying to have a little too much fun. And like you said,
exactly.
you enjoyed it, but you got rewarded, I think, for that effort. And
Yeah,
and that's most things probably, right? Those who kind of keep going
Yeah.
on are the
yeah,
ones who just continue to keep working at it and keep grinding.
yeah. So yeah. Nowadays it's super competitive, and these guys work
Yeah.
and I say really
Yeah.
hard. They outworked me about 10 times what I did in my age, and so they really are tough. Some of these youngsters, they're on the road, and they stay on the road month after month after month after month, and they go from one lake to the next, and they don't go home. They don't, and it's an incredible grind, and they keep working on their craft and how good they are, and learning their electronics and learning how to make a fish eat. And
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
keep working at it to where
Yeah.
they're really, really good, really strong anglers. And it's fun for me
Wow.
to sit back as an
Do
old
you
guy
go
and
watch
watch some of
tournaments? I
these
mean, as a
guys fish
spectator,
and
is that
just think,
something
wow, that's
that
really
happens? You
cool.
go,
So yeah, you can. We had a big one here outside of town about, I'm going to say 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago. And I did go
yeah,
and hang out and
Yeah.
get to, of course, quite a few of them were my good buddies that were fishing.
yeah,
So, and since I just retired, so it was good to say hi
yeah. Can
and
you take
see
a
them
boat out on the lake and
and
kind of go
then
watch
watch them
guys fish,
fish
or
was
is it
fun.
the lake
So,
closed and you kind of go spectate that way?
yes. Yeah.
Right.
So like when you have a golf tournament, they close down the course, and professional PGA guys come in, and you can't really get out there because you interfere with the competition. But with the lakes, almost every one of these lakes, you can go
Right.
out and watch them. So you keep your distance, so you're not interfering with what they're doing, and you watch them. You can have binoculars, and you can get fairly close. And some of the guys are really, really fun to hang
Yeah.
out with, and they'll be
Yeah.
joking with you while they're catching them, and just going down the bank. So it is
Yeah,
it
that'd
is a
be
really
good
cool
experience
environment.
if you get
Yeah.
a chance to go out to be able to do that. It
Yeah.
is fun.
Can you go to lakes before? So let's say do you know where you're fishing the day of the tournament? So you go scout, work the lake, kind of learn where you want to
Yes.
be. I mean, what's that look like? Are guys getting there 2-3 days or a week before on big tournaments?
So
Okay.
generally, we go off limits 30 days prior to the tournament, but there's some organizations where it goes off limits, and you don't get pre-fishing time. But most of the time, you can go and check the laid out as long as you don't go and don't get to see the water and do anything for 30 days. So that's kind of or 28 to 30 days. So most of the times, you can go about a month ahead of time,
Right.
fish the lake, get an idea of how it's laying and
I was gonna say that could
what's
change
there,
greatly over
what the
30
water
days. I
levels
mean,
are
lots
like,
of
which
stuff
can
changes in
change
30 days on the river.
dramatically.
But you have a general
Exactly.
idea. Yeah.
It's lots, but
that's what makes it cool.
sometimes
What
it helps
about
you, and sometimes
what
it
about
doesn't.
like technology like on the boats and things like that? Like I guess for me, do you got like underwater camera, sonar? Like what is that all? What's legal there? What's not? Yeah.
So we do I use Lowrance Electronics, and I have what's called active target. So it's a new sonar that is, and I call it new. It's probably really been out 5 or 6 years, maybe a little more, but it
Okay.
is forward facing sonar. So most sonar has always been just down. It tells you the depth, right? And then if a fish is underneath you, you can kind of see fish underneath you, stuff like that. Well, this is forward facing, so it would be like shining a
Okay.
flashlight, and whatever the flashlight hits, you see, right? So you're shining this flashlight, and you see a fish there, you see a fish there, there's another one back there, and the bigger the return, the bigger the knob that's on the screen, you're like, oh, that's a real big one. And so you can,
Sweet.
if you get good
Yeah.
enough, you can size, you get all that. And now we have where they take that same flashlight and you turn it sideways. So if you can imagine let's see, I've got my little Bible here. So imagine this is forward, so it's facing, if you can see, it's facing straight out, right? But if you take it and you turn it this way, now it's this wide view, but it's this thin band here, right? So if you get in that view, you can see him swimming from right to left, left to right, and you can see schools of fish, and it's really incredible. So we use that now, and I use that like that's one of my main tools in getting gators. So a lot of the gators will have them in a pond or a lake, and they turn around and they go, man, he was just here and he just went down, and we'll go over there. We'll turn on the scout mode on my active target. I'll look over there, and there's the gator laying on the bottom.
Like a big weighted treble hook to him? Is that what you're doing?
Get your hook out there, hook him, fight him up, tape him up, and it's a pretty small one. It's a 3/0 trocar treble. It's probably about the size. I could probably put. It's bigger than a quarter. Okay. Probably about the size of the old 50 centimeters. Okay, which nobody probably even knows what that size is. Almost like a silver dollar, but it's not very big. But it's a 3/0. Okay. They made it real stout, so you can catch like tuna or whatever on those things. But they are short little hooks, and so I just tie a ounce, an ounce and a half. Even up to 2 ounce weight up underneath the bottom of the treble. And so you just tie the treble on, throw it out there, it sinks down, you pull it into them and go. And they got like steel plates on their back. But the trocar point is what they use with surgical needles and stuff like that, because it penetrates. It goes in real easy. So it penetrates easier than anything. And that's what happens. I've hooked them on that top scoot on the end of the tail and gone clean through it, and I've gone through the scoots on top, which are, like I said, almost like steel. So it's an incredible hook. I can't say enough about trocar. Incredible hook.
There we go.
They make
there
them
we
down
go.
to
I need all the help I can get.
Too.
So I'll take it. I'll take it. I mean, that's that's wild to think about. Just spotting a gator and hooking it and pulling it in. I think that. I mean, and so then from there, just real quick, so you pull it in, and then you either tackle on top of it, or you put the cable around its nose and pull it into whatever boat you're in.
Right. We don't see. My boat is, I've got a Triton boat and bass boat, and it's probably about I'm gonna say probably about a $90,000 rig, And one thing I don't want is a 10 or 11 footer to bite a hole in it, That's a lot of money. And so we do everything we can to keep them. Like we put the lasso through a pipe. And so when I cinch down, I'm holding the pipe and I'm holding the rope. And then I literally push him away from the boat, and he's fighting, and we get it on. I mean, it's you would love it. I'm just saying, you would love it. Okay. And you're hanging on, and he's just getting it. And I had one, I have pictures on my phone, this little one. It was an emergency gator. He's on land, which land gators are fun. Water, deadens everything because he's having to work in the water, right? Land, he's got full power, right? He's just him, right? And so I slipped this lasso, and it's just a 7.5 footer. I mean, he's not huge, right? But he's a teenager, right? He's one of those youngsters that can kick your butt because they have so much power. Well, as soon as I slipped it over, he was full of himself, and he just went crazy. And then he bit down on the pipe. He starts beating me up with a pipe. I can't let go of the pipe because he'd kill me, I'm holding on to the rope, holding on to the pipe. He's just beating me, shaking me like a rag doll, I'm just getting pounded left and right. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. Finally, he let go of the pipe. I pulled the pipe off the rope. My grandson grabs the rope, I'm backing up. Then I'm using the pipe. He's chasing me. Then he chased him. Then he's chasing me. Then he's wheeling around. And when I was done, I had a big old blood blister on my hand here, a big blister down in my palm, another blister on the right hand, and a sprained index finger. I'm like, I'm so beat up, and every time we drive past that yard like very often, and we call it AK, ass kicking, right there. I took an ass kicking, and it's like, oh my goodness,
man.
So
I'm just impressed
took one on that day.
For walking this earth for 7 decades and still taking some ass kickings. I'm impressed, man. I love it. But, okay, real quick, bass fishing. Before we move on too much, I guess. Just like, what was that?
I
What
do
was
too.
your schedule look like? Because you talked about how kind of busy these kids are these days, but like, what did that travel time, family, what did all that look like for you there in the
Yeah,
shoot of it?
that's a good question. How'd you fit that all in?
Yeah. It, in the yeah, in the main run of it, it was intense because you do not only you do the tournaments, but then you do a sports show this weekend, and you go Thursday, Friday,
Yeah. I
someplace, and
suppose if you had
Saturday, Sunday,
sponsors, they had
someplace else, and you'd
expectations
be
too,
back
right?
on the
That you're
road
at
for
some of those
tournament.
shows. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think yes, exactly. And so I think the most I ever left just at one time was like 8 weeks before I came back. So 2 months. I remember it was pretty sad. I came in one day and it really choked me up. It's another one of these memories that stay with you forever. But I come in the front door of the house, and my
Mm.
kids, which are by 5 and 6 or 4 and 5,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
they look at me like, "Who is this?" And that's when it hits you. You're like, "Oh my goodness, I'm gone." But we recorded it one year. I
Yeah.
think I was gone 320 days one year, which was really brutal. But most of the time, you'd go for 2 weeks, maybe 3. You'd be back, for a week or so. Then you go for 2 weeks or a week and a half. So most of them were just, you're gone. You fish hard. You come back. I think the sad part is even though I traveled a lot,
Yeah.
you didn't. All you got to know about the area was you
Yep.
fished the lake, and you learned some restaurants because you went out to eat,
Yep.
Yeah.
and you went to the lake, and you went
Yeah.
to the restaurants, went to the lake,
Yeah, I
and
remember. I
that's
mean, that's
really
the
all
people
you
I've
ever
done
got
that.
to see.
We've
of the
been all these
places.
states and all these, all these towns. And like, all I saw was the hotel and a track and an airport, and then I was out again. And you're not a tourist in that
Yes.
town, right? I mean, you know the water for you, lake and the hotel and whatever restaurant you eat at a bunch. Yeah,
No.
yeah, that's
Yeah. But
yeah.
the real joy though was I did get out in the water, and the water was beautiful. And there's some places where
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I went to Lake Powell, I was,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, and Lake Mead and some of these lakes, when you go driving down here in these canyons and this,
Yes.
and you have to admire the beauty and the splendor of America, and so I've got to be on, most bodies of water. I mean, from Washington and especially filming the show and Washington State and all the way through California and some Mexico
Yeah.
stuff. And I've even fished overseas, Japan. You fish at the
Yeah.
at the bottom of Mount Fuji, and you're stunning. It's just stunning. And so, yeah, you look at this stuff in my life. Like I said, I'm very blessed, and I always say that I say, Jesus, I pray to him a lot, and I said, Jesus, I don't know why you blessed me, but I sure thank you, because he certainly did. And I've got a great family and great friends, and I've had a career
Right.
that, I'm prepared today. If something happens today, I'm dying, I'm fine with it. We're good. I know where I'm going. Just having that relationship.
How has that been in retirement?
Made everything that much better.
I mean, I know you're having a blast chasing those gators. Has there been any piece of that you've missed though, that you're kind of going, man, this is, as we come into this next season of, these guys starting to fish in September, are you kind of itching going, oh man, I mean, 44 years of the same rhythm. I mean, that's got to be a lot to break yourself of that.
Yeah. I think it would have been much harder if I didn't have my gators. Okay. And the gator season is just, so, I mean, it's not a season, it's year long, right? December and January when it's cold, we don't get a lot of calls, but we got like an 11-3 in January. You get, 10 footers here and there.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that keeps you busy. And I really haven't missed the tournaments.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I would. I really thought, I said, I might miss this, but it has been actually very easy.
Yeah.
And I actually get stressed now when I have to travel, like I do some celebrity stuff and some stuff with the soldiers and stuff like that. And I'm like, so I'm doing a tinnitus deal up in Tennessee in October. And I'm like, okay, so I'm I'm going to drive up and fish Tennessee for 3 or 4 days and come home and
Yeah,
to me,
good.
it's like
Yeah.
I'd
That's
much
awesome.
rather stay here and catch
You know,
gators.
that's it took you, you said you've been doing the Gators for a few years though, a couple years, right? And so it's like just how important that is to
Right.
have your next mission though, or whatever, right? Because I don't think as men, I don't think we just drop something for 4
No.
decades and
Yeah.
start sitting on the couch very easily.
Yep.
I just don't think we're good at that.
Right. So you know, what's really cool is that it's a service. So
Yeah.
and I guess the older I've got, the more I like serving. And so you go in and this lady has a gator in her swimming pool, and she said, I can't let my dogs out, and they're scared to death, and you go catch the gator out of her swimming pool, and they're so appreciative, and you're like, and we love doing it, and it's, to me, it's very, very gratifying, and to be able to take something that scares people and get it away from them.
100%.
Like
You're a
it's like
superhero.
smashing a spider.
You are.
You're in good shape when you
Yeah.
get
Yep. And has your wife adjusted you being
That's
home
it,
more then?
that's
How's
it.
that been? Or she chased you out the door a couple times?
Yes, that's been good. It was really cool. So there were two things that happened that kind of made that happen, because I worried about retiring. I worried two things. Yes, being home. I think that's why I've been married. For this year it's 46 years. I always said the reason I was still married is that I was gone so long. We're still like newlyweds. But so a few years ago, my mom died. And my wife, being a nurse, we were the caretakers, and she was the caretaker, really. And my mom got real close to my wife, and she said, listen, I want to do something special for you guys. And so she gave us a cruise to the Mediterranean over there, the Greek islands and all this kind of stuff. So we flew into Rome, and so my wife and I had like almost 2 weeks of just an incredible story. And when you spend 2 weeks with your wife of 44 years at the time, you're going, and every minute I'm going, I love her more now than any time, and I said, I can retire because I would love spending time with her. I mean, I love just to go shopping with her, just to go hang out. And so when you realize that made it, and then I had something to do, because the other thing, I'm not very good self-motivator. Now you are a self-motivator because you had to go out there and train all the time, and you were able to push yourself like that. Me, I was able to motivate myself and go fishing. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
So, I got to go fishing. Yeah, okay. But I knew me, my nature was going to be come home, sit on that couch, and love every minute of it, and die in a year. I'm just going to go downhill and die. And so having the gators forces me, like we get a call, say, man, we got to go get this gator. And we scramble, we head out and go. And that forces me to stay out there and stay active. And then I did something, probably the smartest thing I did, was a good friend of mine at church introduced me to his trainer. Now, he's like 83 or 84, and he introduced me to his personal trainer. So here's this girl that is tougher than nails and knows how to train elderly, right? People, so you're not getting hurt. And I said, listen, I need mobility. I need some strength. I'm pulling on a gator, and all of a sudden, 2 days, my back is hurting, And so she's training me, and all of a sudden now, like the other day, I'm doing one of these things where you get your arms straight, you got weights, and you got it hooked up to a bungee deal, and you step, and your whole core, so you're pulling, and your whole core is moving. I've never felt more muscles work at one time than doing this one exercise. I'm loving it. And at one point, I just stopped and did it with 1 foot, and I went, dude, I couldn't even stand on 1 foot a year ago, or actually at the beginning of the year. So in the last 6 months, I have got so much more agility, strength, movement back, that I just said, it amazes
That's
me.
cool too. At your age, to be able to go, you've improved. It's not just all downhill, right? You've gained you've gained years and years of good life, right? Not just living
Right.
long, but good life of being vital.
Yeah. Yeah. When that 10-footer was trying to get me and rolling around,
yeah.
and he's really fast and snapping, and I'm able to outmaneuver him, I sat down. We were waiting for the trailer to come pick him up. I sat down and told my wife,
So alive.
Still got it.
Yeah.
You got to feel so alive when you just grabbing hands onto a 10-foot gator. Like, at your age, I think us young guys, we're chasing hard and doing all this stuff to adventure.
Yeah,
and the big fear is, I had that fear the other day walking. I was fishing in Montana, and we were bear hunting, and the guys were napping, and the Ruby River was 5 minutes away. I said, I can't nap, guys. I'll sleep someday, but not now. I got to go fish this river, right? And so it was on Ted Turner's property. You can walk high water in Montana, right? So I climbed over the edge of the bridge and kind of dropped myself down, so I was within the high water mark.
Yeah.
And he had done somebody, probably not Ted, but somebody had done a lot of work to improve this river. It was an absolutely amazing day of fishing. And I was walking back thinking to myself, I really had a fear of, if I ever lost the joy of catching that fish, right? Because it brings me so much joy. And I had this real, you see people lose that spark,
Yes.
and I thought, man, what a nightmare that would be for me to lose that spark of that head shake, or just that one fish that decides, oh, I tricked him, for me, when you see a little fish rising or a big fish rising in a pool, a little back eddy, and you go, I wonder if me and him can hook up today. If I got what he and I put it in the right spot. And when you do, and I didn't, I say this a lot, but I don't have to land that fish at that point. For me, the deal is done, right? Me and him, I threw it, he ate it. That's all I was looking for, and get that strike, and I'm happy. But walking out going,
you get the strike.
This brought me so much joy. I was giggling by myself on this river like a little kid. And God, I would hate that if I ever lost that feeling, because it's just, it's so special.
And you'll keep it. I can tell you. So I was in Alaska filming, and I figured it was going to be my last time filming there. Last time that I was going to get to Alaska in my lifetime. Yep. And so you know how it is in Alaska. It stays daylight. I mean, it gets dim at midnight, and at 3 o'clock it's bright. And I said, I know I'm going to hate myself after this, but I fished. Like, everybody went to bed, I'd have dinner, we'd go out on the dock, and I'd keep catching rainbows and all the different trout and all the little grayling and everything that was in the river. I'd get a couple hours of sleep. I'd get up and I'd film all day, and I'd come back and I'd catch them at the camp. And I did that every single day, because I said, I can sleep some other time. And boy, was I beat at the end of it, but boy, was I still I can't go and not go fishing.
Absolutely.
I just couldn't be in such a beautiful place and not go at it.
I'm glad to see that you're at your age and still got that fire, Shaw. And I appreciate you coming on. You've given us a good solid hour and 12 minutes here.
It's been so fun.
I love it. I love it on these podcasts. There's times when I find myself just listening to a story, and then I remember I'm supposed to ask the next question. And I have not been thinking about being a podcast host, because I'm just sitting here around a campfire listening to the story time. And that's the best,
Yeah. It's living life, man. Enjoy it, live it. And that's just, it's special. And all three of us here, we've had a special life, and it's really fun to be able to go back and relive some of those moments and tell the stories.
I appreciate you coming on. We were super excited to have you.
Really cool.
There's cool. There's a country song like In Living Color or In Color or something, right?
Jamie Johnson.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's
You
like
should have
about
seen
the
it.
memories. And
you should have seen it in
And
color.
this has been such a fun conversation, because I want to see it in the 70s and the 80s, and just see you ripping and taste the water in the air and the mist. And I don't know. It's like we should have been there. We should have seen it in color, But this was so much fun. So this has been a blast, Shaw. I can't thank you enough. So
Well, thank you for having me. I've certainly enjoyed it, man. And listen, when you do come to Florida, give me a call.
I'm
You
so
got my
in.
number, and
Yeah,
we'll go
figure
grab
out
a
when
Gator.
when our odds are good. And I got Dan, and I got Florida Dan on my phone too. So
Yep.
I got to schedule it all up and get down to Florida. It is like no, it's like the adventure of Disneyland, right?
I was
It's
gonna say,
outdoors. You're
outdoor
out there.
Disneyland.
It
Yeah.
really is, man. So yeah, we'll get down and see
It
you.
is.
We'll record something else when we're down there because you're good at this game. You know what you're doing. We're the rookies here. So
Yep.
thanks for joining us in week 51, right, Tyrel? This will be episode 51.
Episode 50, but yep, week
Episode
51.
50. All right.
Yep, almost
All
a
right.
year.
Yeah, we started at 0. We called first episode
Yeah.
0. So
That
was his
me.
idea.
That
It's
was like
his idea.
my military days. You always had day 0, and then you went on, And it's like,
This Army kid over here screwing me up.
yeah, I messed up a long time ago. Now we're 50 weeks later. Shaw, like, what the fuck was I thinking?
What were we thinking? So, all right. Well,
Thank
you go
you so
catch a
much.
couple gators. We appreciate you. Keep living life, man. Yep. Appreciate you.
Thank you.